And I'm at work and I'm up on a roof and I'm asking God, what are you trying to show me? And it was at that moment the Lord said, go see what Damon's doing.
He sticks his hand out for a handshake and he goes, "Welcome home." Well, I immediately started crying because I was like, aha, Lord, 2 words, welcome home. Welcome to the Whisper and the Walk podcast show. Each week we'll be bringing hope, encouragement, and share stories that we've encountered along the way.
Hey, I'm Fred Augustine. This is my wife, Gail. And today we're going to talk about our journey that brought us to Theodore, Alabama.
This is our first episode on the Whisper and the Walk.
All right, so let me tell you a little bit of how we got here. So over the last few years, I've been trying to go ahead, and Lord's been leading me on a journey of looking at our circumstances in our life from a different vantage point. Went ahead and praying into it, and God's been giving me different visions and illustrations of what it looks like to truly follow Him. For me, growing up, it was more like a 2x4 in the head type system. You know, like I need to be slapped in the head a couple times to understand what God's saying. But as I began to grow a little bit more, the Lord started telling me it's a soft spoken voice of the Lord. You hear it, and it comes like a whisper in the wind. And that's where we come up with the name Whisper in the Walk podcast. So we took this journey together, me and my wife.
So how we ended up in Theodore, that's the title, kind of what's going into this first podcast here, is we had some extra time off for Labor Day weekend. Fred, our whole marriage has been trying to get us, or me, to live in a travel trailer, or buy a travel trailer. I just didn't want to do that. I liked my home, I like entertaining. Long story short, I gave in. We bought a travel trailer. We thought, well, let's take it on our first trip. So we decided to come to Theodore, Alabama, because we were listening to a podcast a while back, and I just noticed the guy who was teaching the podcast, my thinking was changing. So we came up here to see what it was all about, and I put a fleece out before the Lord and didn't tell Fred, and he did the same thing, and you didn't tell me either.
No.
And it was a reunion weekend of last year. And so we went in to the church. They had a Friday and Saturday service. Saturday service came along, and Fred's word got confirmed to him first. And then I wanted to go up to meet the guy, that we went to go see, that we've been listening to his podcast. And he confirmed the 2 words that I said that I needed the Lord to give me. And so we ended up here. So I'll let Fred proceed with that story.
So taking that journey all the way through, I got a call in the middle of the night to pray for a friend of mine, and it woke me up out of a dead sleep, and went ahead and was praying for him. And the Lord had been doing a lot in our lives. He uprooted us, made us change jobs, move into a travel trailer. We went through this big transition. And as we went through the transition, one night after I got that call, I went to go back to sleep, and as I went back to sleep, I had a vision. And in this vision, there was a man basically in there that was mocking me, telling me about my own life. I'll never be good enough. I'll never measure up. You'll never matter. You don't know who you are. You'll never know who you are. And all these different things that attacked who I was as a man and a follower of Jesus. And so that hit me hard. And in there, he actually hit me, and I felt this, a strike across my jaw that I've never felt before. When it hit me so hard, it felt like blood was coming from my mouth. I began wiping my mouth, and I could feel like warm blood coming from my hand. Now, this is a vision. This to me was as real as I am here talking to you today. I went ahead, got knocked down to the ground. This man comes over again, and I could hear him taunting me as he's coming closer and closer and closer. As he got closer, he struck me again. When he struck me again, I was dazed, I was confused, laying on the ground wondering, I'm going to die here, I'm going to die here. That's the only thought that had kept running through my mind. As that kept happening, I went ahead and I remember I got to do something. And I went to push myself up off the ground, and I went to go grab the man. As I did, I could literally feel the sense and hear an audible voice say, "No!" And it shouted so loud that it shook me to the core of my being. When it shook me like that, I literally came to the place of like, what is this? And all of a sudden I heard the Holy Spirit loud and clear say, "Who are you? Who do I call you?" And it was at that moment that I knew that it was the Holy Spirit talking. And the Holy Spirit said, he goes, "Who are you?" And I knew what he was talking about. It was the things that he had been working on me in my life and in this journey that I've been telling you about, of saying, "You are my son, you're called, you're chosen, redeemed, righteous, set free." All the things that we've read in the Bible, but knowing them up here versus knowing them here are two different things. And it was at that moment when it did, something happened on the inside. Like you read the story of like something rose up in David. That's what it felt like in this vision. Everything became real to me in a sense that I've never felt before. And when that happened, it rose up inside. And then the Holy Spirit said, "Prophesy it like you believe it." So I went ahead and I prophesied it like I believed it, and went ahead and said, "Lord, you're doing this thing." And so I began to just speak. And as I did, this whole place that I was in, where I felt like I was taken to in this vision, it was an arena. And the man that had struck me began to get smaller and smaller, and the area became more and more vibrant. And I realized that little by little, the lies of the enemy that were coming against me were fleeing. At that moment, I didn't have to raise my hands. I didn't have to do anything. It was a place of rest that I've never felt before, and a confidence of knowing who I am as a son. And so that journey began, and I went ahead and so as this man began, the arena began getting brighter and brighter. I realized that it was nothing that was any bigger than what I thought it was that struck me, but everything in it was so intense and so vibrant and real. I went ahead and as I started realizing who I was, I felt strength coming into my body. I felt just light shining all around me. After that moment it had happened, the man began to turn, and he started to walk out of the arena. When he walked out of the arena, he looked back and he said, "Next time we will be strong, or we'll be back," is what he said. And I turned and I looked at him and I said, "Next time I'll be ready." The hint of that stuck with me because the identity of who we are is always underneath attack. And knowing that in advance will help us come against the lie of the enemy. And that's what brought us on the journey. That morning I was like, I knew what God was saying, but not saying. Like, "Why are you so vivid in this dream, Lord, or this vision, Lord? Why are you showing me this now in my life?" And I woke her up and I was like, "I got to tell you this." But then I had to go to work, of course. So I left, I go to work, and all day long, this whole thing's playing in my mind. It's as real to me as anything else I've ever experienced. And I'm at work and I'm up on a roof and I'm asking God, "What are you trying to show me?" And it was at that moment the Lord said, "Go see what Damon's doing." And I was like, "Damon? I don't know any Damon." So he used to do traveling ministry. We know a lot of people in the faith. I jumped down from the roof. I go through all my contacts. I'm looking. I'm like, I don't even have a Damon in there. And so I was like, oh, well, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. Go back up on the roof. I jump up and I'm up there again. And I'm like, Damon Thompson. And I was like, who is this man? I know Damon, but is he even still doing ministry? What's going on with him now? So I jumped down off the roof and I Googled, and the first thing that I saw was one of his sermons that popped up was called Beloved Identity. And I just put it on while I was at work, started playing it right there in the yard while I'm building the shed, and I send it to my wife and I'm like, "You need to listen to this." And I'm like, he's in South Carolina. He's only 4 hours away from where we used to live. And then he moved to Theodore, Alabama.
Well, we could never, our schedules never did line up to go to South Carolina to even get to see, or visit. And then, next thing we heard that he had gotten sick and he was, MIA for about 9 months. We continue listening to the podcast, Beloved Identity and things like that. For me, it was changing everything, my thinking, how I grew up, what I believed, what I thought I believed, things I heard. And then next thing we know, he comes back up, Damon did, that he's now in Mobile, Alabama. So then Fred goes, hey, he's in Mobile. Maybe we should take the travel trailer and do our first long trip. So.
And we did. And needless to say, we go ahead and we take that journey. And the Lord led us here. We're driving here. It's a 13-hour drive from North Carolina to Theodore, Alabama. We get here, and the week prior to getting here, anything and everything that could go wrong went wrong. So now you start questioning, did we really hear God?
Yeah.
Right? And it is, again, remember, it is that simple whisper that you're listening to. All the other noise is just distraction. The Lord's never shouting like, oh, you have to be here. It's always like, will you follow? Will you listen?
Yeah.
Will you come? And so the 13-hour drive here, we've got 2 dogs in the car. We're driving. That week prior, 2 of our vehicles broke down. We get here, the slide out on our travel trailer breaks. Now you're thinking, we must not be in the will of God.
I didn't hear from God.
I did not hear from God. So Friday night we went to service. We go to service, and
Well, let me interject right there. So it breaks. Our gearbox broke in our travel trailer.
Yeah.
So I took the dogs out of the house, and I had nowhere to go. The only place I knew was the church. So I took the dogs. We sat in the church parking lot. I'm sitting there looking at the front doors of the church while the service guy is at the travel trailer with Fred fixing it. And I just start talking like I'm, talking to Fred now. It's like, why are we here? Like, there's nothing here for us. It's industrial. It's hot. It's extremely hot. And I told the Lord, I said, I need 2 words. And my thinking was, oh, somebody's going to say, hey, you should think about moving here. Or, hey, what do? I got a job for you. That was my thinking of my 2 words. So go ahead.
So while she's there, the whole drive to here on that Friday before that happened with her, I hear the Lord, I just hear the whisper. You should think about moving to Mobile, Alabama. And I was just like, that's just a passing by thought.
It was a drive-by thought.
It was definitely a drive-by thought. And I'm thinking, there's no way my wife's going to do this. We got all our kids, our grandkids are in North Carolina. We built a life there. We have family there. We have our church family there and everything. And so Friday night we go ahead, and I'm like, Lord, okay, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know if this is the place you want me to be. And normally for me, it's an easy yes. Like, God tells me to do something, I'm like, okay, we're on the ball. We're going to go for this. And this night, I'm there, and you can feel the Spirit moving. And I'm like, okay, Lord. So Saturday, Gil has that encounter with Lord in front of the church. I go ahead, and Saturday night, we go to the church. Now, if you've seen us, you even watched anything on the YouTube at the homestead, you will see me and my wife always sit on outside of the seat. I like to have quick access. And
quick exit.
Yeah, quick exit. And that Saturday night, we're sitting there, and she's like, let's go up front. And I'm like, no, we're going to stay in the back tonight. And we sat in the very back. And because the fleece I laid before the Lord, I said, the only way I'm even going to come close to being here is like Damon's going to have to come and lay hands on me, and I'll know to be here. I said, and I knew the odds of that happening were few and far in between, because we were in the very back in the middle row. And I remember all of a sudden we're sitting back there, and I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm here. We're here for you. We're here for you, nothing else. We just came to encounter you in this place, and this is what it's here for. And all of a sudden, the woman starts crying out behind me in tongues and everything else like that. And I'm like, oh, God, please, keep her quiet, Lord. Keep her quiet. She's louder than the music, and the music's loud there. If you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about. And so I just sit down, and I'm like, all right, just stay focused. I'm here for you. As soon as I say that, I've got my eyes open. I see Damon walking up the aisle, and I was like, oh, Lord, oh, Lord. Now, I wore darker colors, so nothing to stand out. I didn't want to wear a bright pink, bright blue, yellow.
Blend in.
Yeah, I wanted to blend in. Like, I was even wear plaid, because that's what most of them, I was going to put on cowboy boots and plaid, but I said not to do that. So I go ahead, and we're sitting in the back, and I'm like, I'm just going to press in. I'm just going to press in. And I was like, Lord, please shut this woman up. Like, shut her up. Needless to say, we went back and we watched the video that night. Damon had for some reason decided to walk by like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, while I got my head bowed and I'm just pressing in,
So
I felt him put his hands on me.
well, everyone's eyes were closed because it was just just an intimate worship. And so I got my eyes closed. With all of a sudden, I hear Fred crying, which was not his character, especially in a place we're unfamiliar with. I opened up my eyes. I looked beside me, and he had the snot cry, just bawling. Damon has his hands on Fred's shoulders, and he's praying. He's sweeping Fred's shoulders. He puts his hand on his chest, his hand on his back, and he's praying. Fred's a basket case, and I don't know why. I mean, Damon's praying for him. So at that moment, you go ahead.
I'm like, oh God. First thought that runs through my head is, how am I going to tell my wife we're moving to Mobile, Alabama? Needless to say, I said at the end, service has ended. I was like, you want to go meet him? We don't know who he is. We've listened to him for a while. A matter of fact, we were listening to Damon years ago when he worked with youth. We used to work with youth a lot. And so she didn't remember who he was. Mm-hmm. So we go up front, and Damon, we meet him, and he's like, I got 2 words for you. And they were basically welcome home. So at that moment, I was like, well, we'll be here in 3 weeks. So we just left everything.
So we went up to visit Damon, to meet him. And I told Fred, I was like, we didn't drive 13 hours to come and leave. I want to meet this guy because his teachings and his revelation that he's sharing was changing how I was thinking. And so we went up there, we met him, and he goes, oh, I had a word for you guys. He goes, but I didn't want to interrupt your moment with the Lord. Well, that, number one, impressed me, because most people will go, interrupt you. He didn't do that. Yeah. And then me and Fred looked at him and was like, what's the word? What's the word? He sticks his hand out for a handshake, and he goes, welcome home. Well, I immediately started crying because I was like, aha, Lord, 2 words, welcome home.
Yeah.
So then I shared my fleece before the Lord, and Fred shared his fleece right there in front of Damon. So
I told him we'll see you in 3 weeks. We left a 6-figure business, left our family, our friends, our church family, everything, and packed up.
Our whole lives, basically, we've lived there for our whole marriage.
Yeah.
Almost 32 years.
Going to 32 years. And so sitting back now, people ask, do you regret it? No, there's nothing I regret. When you hear the whisper of the Lord, you just take the walk. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, what the circumstance is, you just keep moving forward. Through it all, we even gave up man's best friend. We gave up one of our dogs. Thank God, one of our closest friends.
And that's what you hear every now and then.
Yes, our other dog. So we were able to keep one. The other one wouldn't make the transition. She was a little bit older. But so coming here, it was a big change. And, we know a lot of people go through this, and a lot of people take those changes, and some will come and they'll say, oh, it's a little bit too hard. I would just encourage them, keep going through the motions. God's got you in the place where he wants you. Listen to the small, still voice of the Lord. It's not in the earthquake. It's not in the shouting. It's not in the hype. It's not in all the hoorah. It's literally the still, small voice of the Lord. That's the whisper that got Elijah. That's the whisper that got Abraham. All of them called him through, man. Elijah standing on the mountainside, and it wasn't the fire. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the earth shaking. It was the whisper of the Lord.
And so we want to thank you for listening today to The Whisper and the Walk. If you like what you heard today, and please like and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, keep your eyes on him and listen to his voice.
Live fearless.
Tune in next week for second episode.